at the end of the day, that the calendar tells the truth of your life. You know, if you show me your calendar, I'll show you what you value and what you worship.
Welcome to the Sales Made Simple podcast. This podcast is dedicated to helping overwhelmed outdoor living professionals, landscapers, and hardscapers just like you increase your closing rate to over 75% without doubling your workload so you can build a seven-figure business that doesn't need you. I'm your host, Joshua Gillow. Let's dig in.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the show. This week I have Jon Valenta back on from General Paving Stones, and we're going to discuss something that most contractors don't discuss. And we're going to be talking about keeping your sanity through the busiest time of the year, right? The busiest time when everybody's calling, everybody wants everything from you. It's about trying to keep this work, rest, recovery cycle in place, right? When it's not busy in the winter or something, it's easier to take time for yourself, but and to stay more balanced and more of a, in a good position. But when it comes busy season, the days are longer, the demands are higher. We're just running fire to fire, trying to put things out. And what we're going to talk about today is how to balance all of that out. So Jon, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Joshua. Glad to be back again. Always enjoy our conversations. Hope the listeners do too.
Absolutely. And I know that for so long, dude, it's been like, especially spring, right? Winter, we never plowed snow. So it was like spring came and we're like, all right, good. Everybody's excited. They started just buying things. And then we're, figuring out our schedule and designs and getting proposals back. And it went from not so busy to ridiculously busy. And after that, you sold projects, which was good. The next thing you know, it's like, well, how am I balancing all this? Like I have only so many hours in a day, right? We got 24 hours in a day. Everybody does. How am I balancing this off? And the truth is, Jon, I wasn't balancing it off, right? I was robbing from my family and everything that didn't yell at me to take that time and then put it into the people who were, right? Trying to take things from the loudest noise and trying to make some quiet time. And what I found along the way is that there were so many times that I would rob myself of my own stability, my own mental health, in order to make sure my customers were happy and to constantly be doing that. And what I've realized over very, very many years and many, many times that I had to go back to square one and start again is that I had the idea of work nailed down. I had the idea of rest. Your body, eventually you go to sleep, right? So you work, you're moving, you rest, you stop moving, and then you just keep repeating that 6-7 days a week. But how do we actually recover? How do we, as men and women in this industry, how do we know that we're recuperating physically, mentally, spiritually, with our families, with our with God, with ourselves? Like, how do we know we're doing that and doing it purposefully? That's what I really want to hit on today. So I'd love to hear, Jon, how you've been balancing this out. You always have a very even keel demeanor. At least that's what I notice and experience you in. And I'd love to know how you're figuring that out in your business so that you can have great family balance and also have great intensity at work and all of that. So let us know.
Yeah, I think some of it just came with time, experience, and age. As I've gotten older and been in business longer, my priorities have shifted. It used to be, just like you said, running all day, dusk to dawn, doing whatever was most important, whatever job, whatever customer, running around and just, telling my wife and kids, this is go time. It's April, it's May. I got to work 7 days a week, sun up to sundown. After the sun goes down in the office till the wee hours of the night. And this is just the way it is. It's part of the job. I get my break in the winter. But just doing that years and years and years and finally realizing what I was missing and just having to slow it down. And I just have to prioritize. And some customers are just going to have to wait, because you waited till spring to call when we're busiest. So maybe I can't meet you tomorrow, and it's maybe going to be next week or the week after. And actually schedule time for the family, schedule time off, schedule some long weekends. And that way you come back refreshed and don't feel like you're just running around doing nothing but work.
Yeah. I love the word. You kept using the word schedule in there, right? And that is such an important part, listeners. I know most of my early career, I didn't schedule anything, right? Except for my projects and stuff. But everything else, I just kind of try to tuck in around projects. That was if you looked at a quote unquote schedule, which I didn't have, you would only see the projects, and my life would then fit around those projects, right? My family would get what's left at the end of the day. Once the clients were happy and the dumpster fires were put out, they would get whatever was left. And to be honest, it wasn't a whole lot. right? So at a certain point, I had to make that decision on how I was going to show up better for them as a father and as a husband. And that was really my bigger push. It's like, how do I figure this out? How do I keep this balance in my work and my life, that I can get, the best of all these worlds, the best of business, the best of leadership, the best of being a husband, the best of being a father, the best of being, a good steward of the time given to me, right? So how do we do that? And to your point about scheduling, that's what I discovered through my coaches that taught me these things. Are like, whatever you schedule, you'll do. There's a higher probability, right? When you schedule it, it gets done. And I was like, but how do I schedule things around these projects? If I'm not out there, what's going to happen to these, if I say, look, every day from 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to be in the office doing whatever. What happens as soon as that blows up and Mrs. Jones is pissed off because something didn't happen and my guys don't know how to handle that. So the next thing you know, I'm out on the site trying to put that fire out, and that 8 to 9 o'clock is gone. Then the next day, the trailer blows a tire out and I can't be there doing my 8 to 9 o'clock thing in the office anymore because now I got to go out and fix that. And it just keeps going and going and going. Right. And so getting that or creating that space in my schedule was a great idea. But how have you found it most effective to actually implement that and stick with that schedule? And what do we need to learn in order to make sure we stick with schedules like that?
Yeah, it's putting it on the calendar, just like right here, right now, this podcast. I put it on the calendar whenever it was a week or so ago, we scheduled it. I told my employees, hey, I'm going to be not available during this time.
Yep.
If something comes up, you can handle it or it can wait. And just everything else gets just put on the calendar. And other people see it. My family, my wife and kids all share calendar. We have different colors for each person, so we know who's doing what, but you're more accountable to it when it's out there on the calendar for everyone to see, and everyone knows where you're at and what you're doing. And it's more likely to actually happen and stick to it.
Yeah. And there's going to be a lot more joy and love and fulfillment in your life when you have a schedule, like an actual, some frame of a schedule. It doesn't have to be down to a minute. It has to be these 5 things need to get done today. Let's order them from morning through noon through night, right? And let's get that in order. And if things move, they get that. But at least those 5 things get done in the day, right? Because it's like picking those things, your non-negotiables for the day and getting them done. And when you put it on a calendar, it's something amazing about it, dude. When my coach started teaching me that, I was like, well, I put it on a calendar. Oh crap. Like that means I'm like, I gotta be accountable to it, right? It's in my calendar. It's like, I look at it for the day and I'm like, all right, to your point, I had it in my calendar too at 11 o'clock today. We're going to jump on and have a conversation, right? So I'm like, all right, well, everything else moves around that. And someone asked me, what are you doing at 11? I'm like, I'm busy. It's that simple, right? And it's not as easy when you're running a job site, perhaps, but maybe there's certain no-touch times in your schedule, right? Perhaps you look at your schedule and say, look, after 6 p.m., that's my family time. Nobody touches that. Nobody touches that. And that it could be just that. I know in my mornings, I don't start my actual day until I have all my disciplines done in the morning, right? And that typically it's obviously scripture first, and then I get into looking at the schedule for the day, planning out what I need to do, what needs to be organized, who I need to get in touch with. All that stuff is early in the day. Then I spend time with my family in the morning before they go. My wife and I go on a walk. We spend time working on our marriage and just communication and all of those kinds of things, and then work out. Like all that stuff is built into my morning box, right? And that box doesn't get touched 99% of the time, right? And that's that. And my day starts off somewhere between 8 and 9, and off I go to the races, right? Lunchtime is the time I spend with my wife. She comes home for lunch, and I'll spend some time with her, even if it's just 10 minutes. It's some time. I work from home, so it's some time. And then it's work the afternoon, and then we have our evening from dinner on. That's family time, right? These times are protected times 99% of the time, right? Nothing works at 100% of the time. But if you think of it that way and say, okay, these are sacred times, I'm not going to allow the work world to spill into them, it starts to shift the way you start to see your time. Have you found that to be true, John?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%, especially the evenings and weekends, family time. It's been a few years now. I don't meet with clients after 5 p.m. or on a Saturday or Sunday or holiday.
Yeah.
And there's some people that have, pretty busy work schedules, and they ask to meet on the weekend or in the evening. And I just say, that time is for my family. And they always respect it. And it's just the way it is. And if they can't meet me during my working hours, well, then we just can't help them. And another thing My coach had taught me a little while ago when I am scheduling a consultation or meeting with a customer, and I already, had 2 of these I sent out this morning, I'll send them dates and times. Like, here's some dates and times that I'm available over the next 2 weeks. And I'll give them little blocks of time, maybe Tuesday between 9 and 12, Wednesday between 12 and 3, Thursday between 3 and 5, whenever I'm available. And the key word is these dates and times are currently open on my schedule. Mm-hmm. Because you never know. They might not get back to me for 2 days.
Yeah.
And one of those times got booked up by someone else.
Yep.
So I send them dates and times that I'm currently available, and they get back to me, hopefully with one of those dates and times. And then that appointment gets scheduled, and then nothing else can happen during that time. And it's really worked well.
It's once you have the discipline, and that's something that took me a while to get used to, but now I love it because now I know exactly what I'm going to be doing throughout the day. And there's obviously a little flexibility in there. Life happens, right? But at the same time, I have confidence in the morning knowing what my day is going to look like. I know how to prepare for it. I know if I've got to get ahead, like for a podcast like this, like what are my notes going to be like? What are we going to talk about? Where are we going to take it? Like, I know that it's coming at 11 o'clock. So I know that, this morning between the 8 and 9 block, before I really get ramped up for the day, I'm like, I need to go through and make sure I have that inked out. So when we get here, I'm prepared. Right? If not, if I didn't have, imagine a world where we didn't have calendars laid out, you or I, and we're like, yeah, let's get on a podcast. And you'd be like, all right, cool. That sounds good. When? How about we get on Thursday? Oh, it sounds good. What time? How about like before lunch? Okay, cool. And like, would the chance of those times actually lining up be high or low? Right?
Yeah.
Very low, very low, right? But that's how oftentimes we run our business because we're going from fire to fire. We got to go to this job site. I got to go to Lowe's and pick this up. I got to go do this. And all of a sudden the whole day slips away. And then you've got proposals and designs to do and all of that. And it's all happening because it's chaos, right? We need to take chaos and bring it into order. And a schedule does that so beautifully. And it's really, that at the end of the day, that the calendar tells the truth of your life. If you show me your calendar, I'll show you what you value and what you worship. Let's be honest,
Absolutely.
Right? Your values are shown right there. You mentioned not taking appointments after 5 p.m. during the week, not on the holidays and not on weekends. Same here. I used to go all the time. It didn't matter to me. If they called, I would go. I didn't care if it was a Saturday or a Sunday. It was an evening. I'd tell my family, I've got to work. I got to go. I was so important. I had to do that. And they ran my schedule. And over years and years of doing that, I started to feel very empty inside because I was losing the one reason why, John, I was even doing this. I kept telling myself, it's for my family. It's for my family. I'm a provider. I'm a man. It's for my family. Really, it was for me. At the end of the day, if I really had to scale it back and be honest with myself, like brutally honest with myself, I'm doing it in that cloak, the cloak of, it's for my family. But really, I just wanted to be important and needed. Right. So I wanted to make money and I wanted to be like, dad's not here. He's out working again. Right. And that is no trophy to have on your mantle that you worked the most hours and didn't spend time with your family. That is not a trophy I want on my mantle, because at the end of the day, if it is true, and it is true that I do this for my family, what they truly want isn't necessarily money. They want time and they want presence with us. Right. And the only way you can do that is by scheduling it in and making them a priority. Again, your schedule tells your values, right? So making sure you're scheduling those blocks. In my schedule, I have things from like scripture time in the morning. I have that as a block in there. Breakfast with the family. I have that in there too. Lunch with my wife, walk with my wife, dinner with the family. Like, these things are scheduled blocks that nobody gets to play with. That's just what it is, right? And that shift in my life has changed so much when it's come to my relationship with my family in general. It's when I start to prioritize things and take control of that schedule, and the clients, they get what's left. Not my family gets what's left once my clients get what they need. That's the big shift that I had to go with. And I'm like, man, once I actually became the feeder in my life, the actual leader of my life this way, leader of my schedule, it changed everything. And now my connection with my family is better than ever. I feel more whole, full of joy, love, and fulfillment with my family and around it, because I've made them a priority. It's been the wildest journey, dude. It's so simple, but it's been so profound. And I hope one listener out there is listening to this being like, man, I don't, like where I was, it's so much chaos. I don't know how to start putting that into order. Just start putting things in your schedule and then make it a ritual for yourself in the morning to check that schedule. Don't worry about perfection up front. Worry about just getting it in a schedule, and you'll get better and better and better as you see the changes that happen in your life when you start prioritizing the things that truly matter.
Absolutely, man. I look at that calendar every morning. And then when I, meet with my employees first thing, that little morning huddle, I'll look at my calendar again and I'll just tell them like this time, I'm going to be here, here, and here. If you need me, I'll get back to you. Otherwise, the times in between, I'm available on the phone if you need something. But these other times, I'm going to be with a client or whatever it is. I'm not available during these times, and I'll just give them that information every morning, first thing.
Yep. And they know what's going on, and because what you're doing is setting a level of expectation throughout the day, right? Of what you need to be doing. And they're not thinking, well, God, John's just sitting back there watching TV, eating Fritos, right? He's just having a good time while we're out here working. Like, no, they're like, I've got a book schedule, start to finish. I've blocked the time, personal time, business time, growth time, all of those kinds of things, and relaxation. All those things are built in, because when we get into that work, rest, recovery cycle, when you think about the definition of rest, just say like an object. When it comes to rest, it means it just stops moving. So if you took like a rock and you moved it 30 feet and you set it down, like it's resting there. And that's kind of how I've always looked at this. Like when it comes to the resting side, it just means I'm not moving. So for me, that usually means falling asleep on the couch at about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and then going to bed and getting up at 4 or 5 o'clock. And I've done that for most of my life, right? But it's like, for me, rest and recuperation were in the same bucket. My body's not moving, rest, and I'm recuperating because I'm sleeping. Perfect. Awesome. But why am I still so stressed out and overwhelmed? That's what I kept asking myself. I'm like, if I'm doing this, I'm resting. It's not like I don't get any sleep. I know some people who can't sleep or don't sleep well. I sleep well. But why do I still feel stressed and overwhelmed over and over again? Why is that the case? And then I'm like, well, I've got good work. I've got good mission and purpose. That's fine. It's pulling me forward. That's great. My body rests when I sleep. That's good. And my coach said something to me, and he said, well, what about recuperation? Rest and recuperation. I was like, what is recuperation? I understood the word. I understood what it means. But what is recuperation? Like, what does that even look like? Like, I thought when I slept, I recuperated. But no, there's an extra piece here. What are you doing purposefully every day? Something, 1 minute, 1 hour, whatever it is for you, something that's helping you recuperate, to get back to that homeostasis, to let the pressure out of the stress, to let the pressure off the overwhelm. What are you doing each day purposefully to make sure that happens, and how are you scheduling it? That was a question. I was like, wow, I got to take some time and think about this. Like, I just started thinking about, what could recuperation look like for me? Because I've been an achiever my whole life. It's always about what's coming next. Well, that's why I love this kind of work, because it's like new projects, new clients all the time, new challenges. But when you take that away and you say, okay, now I'm gonna actively recuperate. How does one actively recuperate? Is it meditation? Is it prayer? Is it going for a walk? Is it taking a nap midday? I mean, like, I'm still piecing together what that would look like for me. I'm finding things that are working really well, and I'm testing them. But it was that extra step of recuperation that has shifted in the last few months, specifically for me, has shifted everything for me to not just have recuperation, but to go and discover a bit more about it. What does it mean for me? Does it really work? We want evidence showing that it does work consistently. And let's have a mixed bag of what they could be, so it's not always the same thing, right? And it doesn't have to be. To listeners, you can do whatever you want. But what are we doing actively to make sure that we're recuperating? Because running a business, being in a family, being married, all that stuff can be stressful. It can put a lot on your back, on your plate. What are you doing purposefully to make sure that you're coming at each of those roles, those blessed roles that we have, full? So John, how do you balance recuperation in your life? What do you do that fills your bucket up so you can be the best father, husband, business owner, and guy around? Like, how do you do that on a daily basis or even a weekly basis? But how are you doing that purposefully?
That's a great question. You're making me think of, activities outside of work, like going to the gym. Doesn't really sound like recuperating, but it's not work. It takes your mind off of whatever your responsibilities are at work, and you can focus on yourself for an hour. And I find that really helps. And, just doing things with the family, scheduling them and making sure you go through with it and take the time off of work so that you come back to work, with a fresh mind, and you actually, enjoyed your time off, but not working nonstop.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned earlier about getting older, right? I'm 47, almost 48 years old now, and these thoughts never even popped in my head when I was younger, man. It was all grind. It was all grind, 7 days a week grind. And as I'm getting older and I'm starting to reflect a lot on my life and the things that bring me joy and the things that I'm becoming more aware is really what it is. God's been very gracious in helping me become more aware and exactly what is important and what isn't important and what does this all mean at the end of the day. When you're young, you're just trying to survive. But at a certain point, you've passed the survival line, and now you're thinking about, what does thriving look like? Like, what does the next level look like as I approach 50 here? Like, what do I want each day? Before, it was like I had to do whatever was there to make things happen, to make ends meet. Now we've been blessed to be able to save money and things like that. What does the next level look like? And my old wiring was, busyness equals success. So as long as I was busy, I was successful, and that's all that mattered, because that helped with survival, right? That's what it was. But as things are shifting in life, and I'm looking at it from a bigger picture, maybe I've got like a different rocket ship that goes further out and I can look back at my life a bit more. I start seeing like, man, the things that truly bring me the greatest joy, peace, love, and fulfillment in life is the relationships, right? The relationships that come from my team, from my family, with God, all of those things, and in my customers, all those things. So my question is, then at the end of it, like, how do I make sure that I can show up for all of them as full as possible? And I can't do that if I'm maxed out, stressed out, if I'm totally stuck in overwhelm, because I'm in a world of chaos. So a schedule, back to a calendar and a schedule, brings order to all of that. It brings order to all of that, because at the end of the day, every single piece of equipment that anybody listening owns requires maintenance. But my question for you is, how much value are you putting on your own maintenance? How often are you changing your own oil? How often are you putting new belts on? Like, how often are you being purposeful to make sure that you, not just the physical side, but the mental and the spiritual side, can be the very best you can possibly be for all those people who depend on you? And not just giving them the fragments after everybody else gets the good stuff, after your customers get all the good pieces and they just get the bones.
Yeah, that was a big shift that hit me a couple of years ago when I turned 50 and saw, my kids getting older, and I want to be able to hopefully, be with them for a long time and, be a grandpa someday, and don't want to be that old guy with a cane or who even knows in a wheelchair. I want to be able to keep up with them and ski with them and ride bikes with them and do things and be able to keep up. So my shift in priority was, my health and keeping it as best as possible for as long as possible. And it's funny, you mentioned like the hours. The other night, my son had a friend over and we're at the dinner table, and they're both 20 years old and they're in the trades and they're working 60, 70 hours a week, and they're kind of bickering back and forth, bragging about who's working more hours. And I'm just sitting back like, I'm proud that I worked my 40.
But do you remember a day, John, when that was a bragging right?
For a long time. Absolutely. Yeah. And not that long ago.
I know.
Yeah. Working overtime 6-7 days a week and being proud of it.
Yeah. I see my youngest son, Oliver, he just turned 16, and he started working with a snowplow company, or snow company here in the Poconos, and over the winter, and we had a heck of a snowy winter, so that was great. So he was happy because he's saving up his money for his truck and all that stuff that he wants to buy. So anyway, he got to work, and they obviously, with snow, you are at its beck and call when it comes to timing, and they were working at a resort, so they always had to have things clear no matter what the time was. So he's 15 going on 16 at the time, and he's out. Dude, there was times he was out without much of a break for 20, 30 hours at a time, like straight through. And he'd come back. The dude would get out of the truck. The boss would drop him off. He'd get out of the truck and he'd get on the quad and he'd go down to the neighbor's house that he plowed for cash, and he'd take a shovel and he would shovel, because it's a really steep driveway, so she couldn't even get a snow plow. I say plow, I mean shovel. And he would shovel that whole thing out. He would go get the quad and do donuts. And I'm like, man, to be 15 again, right? To just get done working, 20 plus hours without sleep. And 20, 30 hours without sleep, and then to come back and just get other work done. And then he would crash. He would crash hard. And then he'd get up a couple of days later, next storm came in and he did it again. But for him, he's really proud of the fact at 15, 16 years old that he has he can answer the primary question, do I have what it takes? He's like, yes, I do have what it takes. Look, I just did this. I'm 15, 16 years old and I'm doing stuff that most adults couldn't do, right? So there is a bragging, swagger with that when you're younger. But as we grow and as we mature, it becomes different. For him, it's money right now. His target is to make money so he can get his truck. After a while, hopefully if you've done this business thing long enough, you've got some money saved, right? And we're not talking about feast or famine. We're not talking about absolute survival where you don't know if you're going to be able to pay the bills next week or the next couple of days. You have a little bit of core capital put away and a little bit of insulation so you can start making decisions, not from the survival mindset, but actually from more of a thriving mindset. Like instead of saying, what do I need to do to get the money? It's, what is the best decision I can make now that's going to be best for my family, for myself, and all of that as you move forward? Which projects are going to best serve them? Which ones are going to least serve them? All that kind of thing. So I say that, listeners, because as you grow with time, your priorities shift. I know mine certainly has. It was a big badge of honor to be constantly busy and constantly in demand. And it just felt good to say that and to be part of it. But what I've realized over this time is that for what? At the end of the day, for what? More projects could equal more money, which gives you more choices. That's what money does. It gives you more choices. But at the same time, at what cost? When you don't have a family and you're young, like my youngest is, 15, 16, he's obviously not married, has no kids and all that stuff. So it's like he can focus on himself. But eventually that shifts. And we shift into getting married and having kids, and your focus, if it's on yourself, then you won't have the kids or the wife very long, right? So it's broadening that perspective as we grow. And, and if we aren't coming to the table in those roles and those blessed responsibilities, being a business owner, being a father, being a husband, all that kind of thing, if we're not coming to the table full, ready to give, a full bucket you can give, you can't pour from an empty pail, right? Get ready to give and you're not doing that purposefully, you're missing out on one of the most incredible opportunities in life. I know John and I both have experienced that and continue to experience that with our spouses and with our kids, to be part of their lives and to really get to know them as people, not just those people that eat your food, cost you money, right? But to get to know them and to be able to go to all the games and to concerts or whatever it is, climb mountains with them, whatever it is, to really take that time and make that something that you worship is your time with them and things you prioritize in life. And so during that process of thinking about recovery, I'm like, there's so many things that I'm already doing to recover. I just never thought of it that way. And I'm purposefully putting them in my calendar, even going out with my local brothers here for a hike. That's recuperation, just to have conversation like that and go out and be in nature. But I purposefully plan those things. I have those things scheduled because if they don't schedule them, they don't happen. So listeners out there, if you're listening today and you're like, I'd like to have more balance in my life, more homeostasis in my life, where I can feel more, if you can think of your level of focus or anxiety or stress going like from jacked way up to down sleeping, then jacked way up again, like there's this constant up and down. And you want something that's not necessarily flatlined, of course, but something that's more manageable in the middle. It's about being purposeful with your time. It's also about being extremely purposeful with how you recuperate and making that a priority. And oftentimes recuperation means being around the people that you love and prioritizing that time and being present. That's huge. That's huge. But everybody has a different way of doing it. So listeners, I challenge you to listen to yourself and think about, what would it look like if I prioritized not just rest and work, but also the recovery side, that recuperation? What would that look like for you? And how could you be purposeful with that? And if you think like, I got a couple of ideas, pull out your phone and schedule it. Just pull out your phone and schedule it for the next week. Put in blocks of time in your schedule and say, you know what, this is going to be time for this, 30 minutes, 10 minutes, 1 hour, whatever it might be, and stick to it. And if you're not used to doing this might be difficult to start with. But once you start building this in as a pattern and you start scheduling these things out, the next thing you know, you'll get better and better and better at it. And you're going to see your family, your heart, everything grow. And it makes the business even better. Because when you say no there and you say yes to them, it's hard to explain, but you feel fuller on both sides. I live with a lot of regret in the early years of choosing the business over my family. And I had a lot of regret in my heart for that. And as I started to choose my family over the business, that regret just disappeared. And I knew that I was on the right track. I knew that giving that time to the family was the most important thing of it all. Now, obviously, we need to have both, but at the same time, when we're purposeful in it and we're scheduling it, it makes all the difference. Any thoughts you have on that, Joe, before we wrap up? John, before we wrap up?
One other thing I think would be good to mention is something that we've been doing probably around 13 or 14 years now, not just to help with me and my recovery, but my employees as well, is the 4-day work week. And I have the legend in the landscape industry, Bill Gardocki, to thank for that. He taught me about that, and I thought that sounds great, and tried it and never looked back. And we have a 3-day weekend every weekend. And then you think of like holidays, Memorial Day just passed. We got 4th of July coming up. That's already a 3-day weekend. So now we have a 4-day weekend.
Yeah.
So talking about having, recovery time for the entire company, not just the owner. And it gives us that flexible day. Almost everything we do is outside. If it rains one day, we typically can't work. If it's pouring rain all day, then we'll come in and work on a Friday, still get a full 40-hour work week, not pushing the employees to kill themselves and work, 5, 6, 7 days a week, with all this crazy overtime. We get our 40 hours in and we take our time off and we come back the next week recovered.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is huge. That is huge because, it's to have that time so that you prioritize it with your entire, company, that they get that time too. It just shows your leadership and the fact that recovery and recuperation is important for you, for them. And that's how you build a great team, because once they can feel that and they know that you care as much as well, maybe even care more than they do about the recuperation, but you're giving them the space for it, right? And then they can plan their life, because when they're home and they're more full in their families and more full in those relationships, they come to work more full. They've got bigger buckets that are fuller that they can give more from. And we just can't run them out to nothing because we think that in some way that we're entitled to it as owners. That's just not true. Just not true. So, John, thanks for this conversation. Thanks for jumping on. Guys, if you're listening to this and you've said, okay, enough's enough. We need to make a shift here. We got to do something because the stress, the overwhelm is just too much. Yeah. Start figuring out how you can start recuperating purposefully. Start with a schedule and be amazed what happens from there. So, everyone, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.